Okay, it says it recording. Okay, now I'm gonna share my desktop with you, um, and display it as a presentation. And let's start it at the beginning. Okay, it's hard for me to monitor when they put this through my screen, so I'm gonna try my best. Okay, so you're here to learn about divorce and your finances. The first 5 steps you need to achieve emotional and financial clarity. I'm going to start with a little bit about myself. My name is Sawyer. I am not an attorney and I don't provide legal advice. Rather, my role is to support your financial understanding and decision making during the divorce process. I am a certified divorce financial analyst. I am a mediator, which means that I mediate couples in divorce. I'm a personal divorce guide, which means I use my certified divorce financial analyst and my certified divorce coaching and help you through the divorce process. I'll go a little more into what that is. And I'm also a financial recovery coach. My name of my company is Finding Strength with Shell. I got into this role because I went through my own overwhelming divorce, where I really didn't want it. And I was depressed and some days couldn't even get out of bed. And here I was making decisions for my future. There was some wrong turns I took. To go back to do it again, I would love to, but you can't. Um, but I had longed for a neutral third party to help me along this route. And this is why I do what I do now. So I'm going to talk about those first 5 steps you need to take. So, step 1, this is like really important for any state that you live in, and to also make sure you understand your finances right before you get into the divorce arena. And it also helps you protect yourself. How does it do that? It helps you understand where you are now, right? There's a lot of bad acting that goes on in divorce. People are grieving, and a lot of things that you could have never predicted happening can happen. So, the first thing you should do is gather your finances. Start by organizing that, whether you put them uh, in a folder on your computer or you get one of those accordion folders. Knowing what you have now is one of the best steps you can take for your future. So that means like pulling up your bank statements. What does that look like for you? Home mortgage. What does your mortgage look like? How much do you have left to pay? What's your interest rate? And really, like, what's your house going for at this point in time, right? And then those retirement statements. Usually they're in one person's name, a 401k, an IRA, a 403b. Understanding what those look like is a big piece of this puzzle. And I stress understanding where you are now is so important because if anything changes between now and then, you'll know. But also you can start understanding what you own and what you owe. If you don't have a good understanding about that, now's the time to do it. Another great thing is look at your tax returns. Look at it not just for this past year, but for 3 years back. What do those look like? Is there interest income coming from an institution that maybe you weren't aware of? Is there dividends being reported? Maybe you can find out a little more about what is happening in your taxes because that is a treasure trove of information in there. And then I always recommend running a credit report. You can have a free one every year. Annualcreditreport.com gives you one. See what your credit report looks like. Even if you're not going to be going through a divorce, this is an important step for anybody to understand their finances. There could be something being reported incorrectly on there. There could be something from many moons ago that you need to adjust. There also could be you being an authorized user on an account that's really impacting your credit rating and your debt to equity ratio, which is your ability to get loans and mortgages in the future. So understanding your credit report and what's on there, it's good to even just take a look. Okay. And then business finances is if there's ever you ever have a business in your divorce, right? There's a couple different ways you can go about looking at that business. One thing I don't advise is not looking at it at all, because it usually does have some kind of valuation or income producing capabilities, right? So usually with my clients, what we do is we either get a business valuation. There's experts out there. I even have some referral partners that are they're very efficient. They get things done quickly, and they're very responsible and can really do and efficient, right? Efficient, effective, all of those. And that's why I choose them to be business referral partners. But they can get them done quickly, especially if you're doing mediation, right? Mediation takes less time, so they try to do something quick and easy for the mediation process that's cost effective as well. So it's not about getting a valuation to sell your business. It's rather getting a business valuation for mediation. And there's specific people that do things like that. But it also, if it's not going to be a valuation, right, and maybe you have a consulting service, you can look at it as income producing as well, right? And that's a piece of this puzzle. So usually there's some kind of financial affidavit, financial summary within your state that gets produced. And that includes everything from your income to your expenses to your assets and your liabilities. I usually produce them for my clients because they are a court document and very intricate. There's a lot of detail that's put into them, and you do have to get those notarized. Okay, and it's almost like you're testing under oath, even if you don't go into the courtroom, that you disclose everything. So that's very important to have good information. And I would say being honest and upfront goes a long, long way in producing those financial affidavits and summaries. Step 2, get prepared. You might say, what does that really mean, Shell? Before you step into the divorce arena, right, you do need to get prepared. Um, Preparation really makes you less afraid and better to act. And I will say, in most things that we do in our life, including getting married, we plan for it. A lot of times, what happens and how mistakes can be made or regrets can be and frustration can be acted upon is there's not a lot of preparation that's done when you're getting divorced, right? You just jump right in. And maybe you think that hiring the first attorney, the best attorney that's out there, is going to be your be all end all for all your being afraid and um, they're going to help you through all of this, right? But their help comes at a very hefty cost. Um, and depending on where you are, I'm located in Connecticut. The average hourly rate of an attorney is $400 to $450 an hour. So if you're asking them to help you manage your finances, manage your emotions, it comes at a really big cost, right? So before you act and find the best attorney for yourself, it's really good to get prepared for this, right? Even if it's on your doorstep, right? You're contemplating it, or it has come to you that somebody wants to get a divorce, right? You can still take a little bit of time to get prepared. Um, One of the big things about this is like every state is unique, right? So there's 3 things that I think you need to do to get prepared. One is understand what marital property is. Okay, I'll go into that a little bit. And then understand what your laws in your state are. Um, and I'll talk about a little bit about that in a few slides coming up. But then have enough money on hand, right? I hear this very often, like I need a divorce attorney. Divorce attorneys cost too much. I don't have the money set aside. This does not mean to not disclose this money. It just means that have the ability to get some money on hand so you can have a successful divorce. I know successful might sound funny when it comes to divorce, but success really means, doing the right thing, but to yourself and for your family, right? And making sure you get a fair deal, right? If you don't have enough money on hand, it's hard to have a team of experts to help you. And I don't mean you need 10 different people on your team, but you need a few different people, right? And I'll talk a little bit about that too. And then consider the different types of divorce. So this means don't just jump in and hire the first attorney that you know. Every attorney is different. There's mediators out there that might not be attorneys. There's collaborative law, and I'll get into that a little bit myself. But these are three things I think you need to do to get prepared. So I talked a little bit about the different types of divorce, right? There's four different types of divorce you can do. There's pro se, there's the traditional hiring lawyers, the litigation, there's mediation, and there's collaborative law. Pro se is when you represent yourself in court. You don't have attorneys, you waive your right to an attorney. Some people use this strategy because they can't afford a divorce lawyer, right? Or they don't know that there's other things like mediation and collaborative law that could be more cost effective. Um, and they try to do this as a strategy, maybe there's not a lot of assets. So I would say if there's not a lot of assets and there's not a lot of kids, or even any kids, pro se is okay, right? You're going into the courtroom and you're filling out paperwork. Yeah, if you want to get through it quickly. But anytime there's even a house, right? Or even a retirement fund, you should be doing a different type of divorce because a lot of times what happens in pro se is a little bit of manipulation. And that may mean somebody's not disclosing everything. You're not understanding your rights. And you might be leaving things on the table, right? That could help you in your future. And sometimes people do pro se. I'm like going into a little more detail on this. Some people do pro se because they just want it over with. I understand that, but taking a few more months to make sure that your future is going to be successful is the right way to go for you and your family. So then there's the litigation. This is the one that people usually know about. This is where each party has an attorney. Um, Issues are sent to family court for resolution. I would say this is the most costly, and has the most conflict, right? So it is each person hiring an attorney, and it can get very combative, right? It tends to be the nature of this litigation. And then there's mediation. Mediation is a process where you're using third-party neutrals to help you make good decisions. I myself am a mediator as well. I did this because I did mediation in my own divorce and found it to be overwhelming. Um, you have a third party there, but you might not know what your, good advice is, right? So because they're not an advocate for you and they're not an advocate for your spouse, they're more an advocate for both of you. So they're helping you through that, right? As a CDFA, I like to help people and give them good suggestions, some guidance, make sure they understand what they're getting themselves into and coming up with a fair and equitable settlement that both of them can be comfortable with. Then there's the collaborative approach. You do each have an attorney in this collaborative law. I would say it's kind of a mix between the litigation and mediation, because you're all working together, right? And the idea is that you come up with a resolution before you go to court, with collaborative law. So it's a kind of mix between the two, right? And you work together. This is why they call it collaborative, is a team approach, right? So you usually have two attorneys. You might have a financial neutral involved. You may have a divorce coach or some kind of therapist in the mix. So it can get pretty pricey because you're paying for all of them to be part of this, and they could have meetings without you, right, that you're paying for. But it is a good approach to understand why it's so important in our world today to keep you out of the courtroom. Okay, so understanding laws of each state. Each state is different, okay? Um, Understanding what fair and equitable means versus community property. So community property, I would say they're the 50-50 states. There's a lot of states around the west-hand side of the country that use community property. California being one of them, Washington, they use community property. Most of the other states, they do fair and equitable. So it doesn't necessarily mean 50-50, but it means you're trying to come up with an agreement that's both fair and equitable. Equitable doesn't mean equal, it means close to it, right? I would say most people start with that 50-50 in mind, and they divert from that depending on the negotiation. It's all about negotiating, right? But coming up with something that's fair. Do you need to hire an attorney? I would say there's a place for attorneys in each process. I always recommend, even if you use a mediator like myself, that you have somebody that reviews your agreement for your best interest, right? Because you're not getting any legal advice during mediation, even if it's an attorney, right? So hiring an attorney, we call it review counsel at that point. So you don't really need to hire an attorney. And I would say you don't need to hire an attorney right away. I would say the best approach is probably to have some consultations, make sure you're thinking about like what your needs are. The first person you should really hire is a certified divorce financial analyst. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But they're the ones that are going to help you prepare for your journey into divorce. Do you have to serve your spouse? It does depend on each state. Connecticut, if you choose mediation, you don't need to. Most of the time, you're serving your spouse, but that's a good thing to research when you're looking at your different state laws, if there's anybody here that's not from Connecticut. Um, is there a waiting period to get divorced? Connecticut's is 90 days waiting period. If you choose mediation, you get to waive that. There's some states that require a 12-month waiting period, right? I know North Carolina, I've done a few mediations in North Carolina, and they require you to be separated, like literally like separate, you live separate from your spouse for 12 months. So every state is different. And then what is considered marital property versus separate property? This is always, there's so many people that have opinions out there. I don't mean divorce professionals, but like I see people posting on Facebook, like, is this my house because it's only in my name? Marital property is anything you've acquired during the course of your marriage or is increased in value. So marital property, um, and I'll say one other thing. Separate property is anything you've had prior to your marriage or an inheritance and gift, right? So I'm going to give a little example around here. Marital property could be a house, right? There could be a separate property aspect to it. Maybe if you bought it before you got married, or maybe you put a little bit of a down payment on it that was like a sale from another house. Marital property, anything that's commingled, maybe you had an inheritance and now you put it in both of your names, well, that would become marital property, right? Another aspect that could be like either marital property and separate property, I know this is, confusing. Um, but that's why you have divorce professionals, right, to help you with this, but this is good to know. Like a 401k, I always use this as an example. Maybe you worked someplace else prior to your marriage. So the majority of that would be considered separate property, but there's a potential that it increased in value during the time that you were married. So that increase in value, that would be considered marital property. I hope that helps. And if you have questions on that, please put it in the chat and I'll definitely answer it at the end of this presentation. Okay. Step 3, don't mix money and emotions. Okay. I see this happen a lot. I would say one of the things that really comes up are like people are really like connected to their marital home. Maybe they want to keep the kids there. Maybe it's their place of refuge. Maybe it's you don't want to disturb the kids. The one thing I would make sure is that you're looking at all of this from that financial aspect to make sure that you can actually afford what you're keeping, right? And what that next chapter looks like. So this means like you are making decisions based on facts and figures rather than your feelings, okay? Um, if you have a support system that's objective, not friends, not family, because they're usually like they're rooting for you, right? But having somebody that's objective to help you navigate without letting your emotions cloud your judgment. Those people can be divorce coaches. Divorce coaches are very valuable. Therapist. Divorce can be a roller coaster ride, and having a therapist by your side is really important. And then a CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. So I'm going to tell you what a CDFA is. The Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. I got this because this is what I felt like I needed in my own divorce. And when I talk about what I do, most people say, I wish I had this when I got divorced. And why do they say that? Because it does save time, they do save money, and they do save in your stress, right? They are your thought partners. They are helping you make good decisions. They are the people that are going to hold your hand during your divorce, the ability to ask questions, making sure you're looking at whole financial picture. Because divorce is not just a legal process. I would say it's a journey, right? It's complex, it's intertwined with finances and emotions, and it touches every aspect of your life. So with a CDFA, it's not just navigating the spreadsheets, right? And the settlement terms alone. You're getting a steady hand. You're getting a presence in your life at that time and an advocate, someone who's looking out for you, your fears, your hopes, your finances, and all of the above. So a certified divorce financial analyst really helps you. I mean, you can ask questions to them. They're obviously going to cost a lot less than an attorney, and most of them offer packages of some sort, and you get them through you get somebody that's going to hold your hand and be your thought partner. So you can ask financial questions to them. You can you can tell them all your emotions, and not tell your lawyer, right? That's an expensive therapist right there to tell, and they're not really there to handle your finances and emotions, right? So, and that's my next slide. Why would you hire a CDFA if you already have an attorney? Well, they're not really there to manage your finances and your emotions, right? They are great advocates for you. They will help you get what you deserve. And especially if you need somebody that's going to advocate for you, they do that. But when you engage legal representation early on in a process, I told you before, like having a CDFA would be your like best bet to start with. Because if you hire an attorney early on to do some of the financial affidavits, financial summary, you're really depleting some of your hard-earned money. that could be better allocated in another way, right? They're advocates. And then you really need somebody, an attorney that aligns with your specific needs. A referral partner, uh, when you get a referral from someone, that's great, but it might not be what you need, right? It might not be the person that you need by your side. Every attorney is different, and you need someone that addresses your needs and is willing to help you in the way that you need them. And then some attorneys, they might not have the capacity or willingness to assist when you're doing your finances, right? And with that, it becomes very challenging. And if you use them for those things, you're using them, it's a high cost, right? Um, but they can be fierce advocates and negotiators, but they might have limited availability for some of your guidance. So it most of the time, attorneys are going to need the first thing from you is your financial documents. And they want a clear outline of what your priorities are from the start. And if you're not organized and they're not readily available, your finances, it can really put some delays, and you'll need some assistance for that. And it comes at a cost, right? And that makes it further prolonging the timeline of your divorce. And most importantly, there's so many things to consider in a divorce that are different from regular everyday finances. So if you feel like, hey, I don't need a CDFA because I know what my finances are, there's so many things you can do in divorce or can't do, that you need some guidance, right? And it's not just about paying the bills. It's not just about how much money do I need to put in my 401k. That's not what this is about. This is about your divorce. And that's why there are CDFAs out there. Don't leave your future up to chance. That's step 4. Take control and make very informed decisions. Understanding what the best settlement option for you is and why is so important. It's it's really important to be amicable in your divorce, especially if you want to be good co-parents, right? That litigation process doesn't really set you up for success because you are being confrontational. And now here you have to go and be good co-parents, right? If you have children's. Being nice and kind is okay, but and trying not to make waves, but it can lead to you leaving some things on the table. And don't do it just because of the sake of you want to get it over with. It won't take too much more time, and it will definitely leave you vulnerable if you do that. So plan for your future. Create a budget for your next chapter. Understand what you need and make sure you understand all of that. A CDFA can definitely help you determine this and help you where they can even give you negotiation techniques, helping you come up with talking points through mediation, all of the above, right? They are your partner through all of this. And then step 5, I have an 8-week in-person group coaching program coming up. It's starting on September 8th, 18th, 18th. It's a Thursday. It's Thursday nights through September, October, and the beginning of November. This is a program that introduces the FIRST method, FIRST, which consists of the first steps you need to take to moving forward in your divorce process with clarity, with confidence, and a custom financial strategy. So what should you do before calling an attorney? Start here. Yes, before hiring the attorney, before hiring the mediator, or even starting negotiations with your spouse, take this step to understand your finances and understanding what the best settlement option is for you. This will give you lots of clarity and confidence and will help ensure that you understand your numbers and you can have productive conversations and really pave the way to success before you step in the divorce arena. So this is a secure environment. It's private. It's not judgments. You don't even have to share your finances with anybody else, not even me. Um, but will help you through it every step of the way so that you are prepared for your journey. So this is the program, from fear to financial strength. So if you're standing on the doorstep, this is really where you're going to get a good financial plan and a strategy for your road ahead. It's on Thursdays, as I said, from September 18th to November 6th in Wethersfield, Connecticut. And you can find more information about it on my website, findingstrengthwithshell.com, and it's under the group program, and there's a QR code here for it as well. I also have a book. I wrote this book. I really wrote it for me, right? While I was considering divorce or facing divorce. I had wanted something like this. This has templates, it has checklists. So if we were talking at the beginning about getting all your finances organized, this comes with templates and checklists so you can download them, start preparing, um, getting all your financial information in order, helping you understand it. So maybe when you do um, start the process, right? You'll have all that information available and you'll have insight. I mean, I'm a very visual person. I don't know about the rest of you, but I like to see my finances in order and be able to really understand them because I'd rather have me run them than them running me, right? And that's what finances do if they get a little out of control. And here's me. Here's a little bit about me working with me. My email is shell@findingstrengthwithshell.com. I can put this in the link in the chat too. This is my website and my phone number. So my phone number is 860-613-5575. I'm not sure if most of you are from Connecticut or not. But I do work in Connecticut and Wethersfield, obviously, and I do I have worked with people all over the country. It's not necessarily my specialty, but it is something that I'm able to do is work as a CDFA all over the country. And I've helped people from Oklahoma to New York to Pennsylvania to North Carolina. That was a tough one because you have to be separated for 12 months in order to do that. So I am going to open it up for any questions that anybody has. Feel free to put it in the chat. If you have any questions for me, I can even, looking at the chat now, let's see. Oh, how does an attorney feel about you hiring a CDFA? That's a good question. They don't even need to know that you have a CDFA, honestly. But I've worked actually directly with some of my clients and their attorneys. I don't usually, that's not something I recommend highly. Um, some attorneys are fine with that though, right? Because they are not there to manage your finances. They are not there to manage your emotions. They usually are very scattered. And there are a lot of attorneys that appreciate it. You having a CDFA by their side, especially if they know a few and they understand what the value is. So hopefully that helped. This is another one. Okay, so I'm going to put my information here. Well, if there's anyone that but please feel free, even if you wanted to come on and you know what I'll do right now